All right. Have we heard from any of the other members? I've
No.
not heard from Greg or Brianne. Okay.
Chair Sarno, I did start the recording.
Okay.
Thanks.
And
That's
would
Lorraine.
you, yes, I'm sorry. And would you like to do the presentation or do you need assistance from me?
You know what? Let's try with you doing it there, Lorraine. I think that's worked out well before. Let's give it another try.
Okay.
And then we can always share and do that if needed.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. How's it going?
Hey, man. How you doing, Neil?
Good, good, good. All right. I think we're ready to get started here. So,
Okay, give me a minute. I got to get that screen back up that shows if we have additional attendees. Move that over here. Oh, yeah, I can keep an eye on that for you.
okay, sounds good. Well, let's call to order this meeting here. Thanks everyone for coming. This is the Inglewood Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. Today's date is Thursday, November 12th, 2020. The time is 6:02 p.m. I have, as first order of business, approved the agenda for today. And with that, we'll do the call to order and roll call. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Chair Sarno,
Present.
Vice Chair Lewis,
Present.
Member Dietrich,
Present.
Member Knadison, Member O'Connell,
Present.
Alternate Member Plasters, Mayor Pro Tem Sierra,
Present.
Director DeAndrea,
Here.
Sergeant McKay,
Present.
Traffic Operations Administrator Groff, Deputy Director Lundquist.
Present.
Okay, very good. Let's just dive into this, the approval of minutes. Next item on the agenda. This is from our October 8th meeting, 2020. And as usual, I asked the committee if they have any comments or questions regarding it and would like to amend any of those meeting minutes.
No.
And I don't hear any comments right now, so
I'll motion
Do we-
to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
thank you, Chris. Do we have a second?
Second.
From Member Lewis, thank you for that. Any additional conversation or discussion regarding the approval of minutes? All right, none at this time. We'll go ahead and take a vote.
Chair Sarno,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lewis,
Aye.
Member Dietrich,
Aye.
Member Knadison, Member O'Connell,
Aye.
Okay, I believe the ayes have it. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. Moving on, we're to the public forum portion of the meeting. At this time, I don't believe there's anybody present on the line, of course, for any comments. If that changes, of course, they're always welcome to present their concerns. So at this time, we'll just move on into the new business. Okay, beginning with the follow-up on public forum. And so this was actually, I believe, for the Acoma Street between Cornell Avenue and Dartmouth Avenue. There was a citizen at the last meeting who had shared his concerns regarding some of the traffic patterns, speeding and so on, and high volumes, I believe, as well too, that were going through that intersection there. Provided some background, and Guy Norris, our traffic engineer, city's traffic engineer, was present and has responded to that citizen's comments there. So reviewing the traffic impact study for Chick-fil-A development, the study evaluated the intersection of Cornell and Acoma. It was determined an all-way stop is not warranted and also considered and then recommended not to switch the current stop sign's direction as Acoma Street has greater volumes. The study also evaluated intersections on Dartmouth and Acoma and Broadway. A number of valid improvements were recommended, but not implemented. Also, although some of these improvements conflict with the new bike lane, the traffic division has already planned implementation in the future for most of these improvements. Despite these recommendations from the TIS, considering location and circulation of the intersection, the traffic engineer believes that switch of stop signs at Cornell and Acoma is reasonable. This change should be equal or better than existing from a safety perspective. Traffic counts are being conducted on Acoma to monitor growth and speeds, but they are not expected to change or support the recommendation at Cornell. Conclusion, traffic division will relocate the stop signs at Cornell and Acoma. The plans will be developed in the next couple of years for improvements on Dartmouth. So we do have a change coming from the city in regards to the signage there at that intersection. And I know, Chris, you had spoken to this at the last meeting, and I think this is something you had your eyes on for some time, and you had your own concerns about it. So is this kind of in line with what your thoughts were as an improvement?
Yeah. You know, I'm just glad that they're continuing to put some attention on that area based on a lot of the changes that have gone on between some housing and the Chick-fil-A obviously being a very high volume, business on the corner. I'm happy that we're going to try something out, and I think a lot of other people will be too. And I'll communicate this to some of the neighbors in the area as well and have them share the news. Some of you live more nearby like I do, but yeah, I mean, I think this is great. I may have been a little overly passionate about this last week as well. So I really appreciate the city, taking a look at it and making a recommendation. And I think the citizens will be happy to hear that we listen to them as well. This seems like a relatively easy change, and I'll be interested to see how this works out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, let me see, I want to go back to the name of the gentleman that was provided this comment here from last week's meeting. That's right, Mr. Burton.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So apparently he's not here at today's meeting, but regarding his comments on this very intersection, I think that's in keeping with what his wishes were and his thoughts as an improvement as well too. So if he's out there, then I hope he sees this and that the city's addressed this.
Chair Sarno, we will reach
Yes.
out to Mr. Burton as well to let him know what the plan is.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was going to be a question I had was follow-up, so appreciate that on your end. And just for these kinds of changes, is there a protocol or something for notification of nearby homes or businesses or things like that? How does that work on your end?
Yeah, that's I don't know about notification, but typically if we add a stop sign, or in this case, we're going to reverse the direction, we'll add those red flags on the top. If you've seen those before, just to bring more attention to the public to see those, that something has changed. So we'll talk about maybe too, like a postcard to the immediate area, just kind of giving the whys behind why we're doing this. Maybe like a 2 or so block radius of that intersection.
Yeah, I don't think you need to do anything atypical, but appreciate the thought on that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that the flags, putting those red flags, like you're mentioning, Director and Andrea, over those stop signs is very typical application for that. And certainly with a lot of people consistently, especially in the neighborhood, maybe moving down that street, whether it's Tacoma or Cornell, and everyone's creatures of habit. So of course, having that extra, red flag there for them is real good to indicate that a change has been made. So,
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Lorraine, back to our next item. I believe this is it.
Mhm.
All right. The Safe Routes to School. Colorado Safe Routes to School, SRTS, uses a comprehensive approach to make school routes safe for children when walking and bicycling to school. Although Inglewood has previously participated in the SRTS grant program, the city did not have the resources to submit a grant application for the next 2-year cycle that closed at the beginning of November. Beyond this one specific grant process, Inglewood has been striving to move our own SRTS efforts forward. Early in the year, Inglewood installed pilot placemaking improvements on Dartmouth and Kenyon in support of SRTS. Additional in-street yield to pedestrian signs have just been deployed as part of this pilot effort. SRTS improvements have been a major factor as a traffic engineer identified and scoped a new traffic safety project. As an example, Tufts multimodal improvements are specifically being prioritized due to the 2 elementary schools along this avenue. These projects can be far more comprehensive in improving overall safety, and funding is more readily available. And there you go, thanks. Recommendation, the city should utilize and refine previous strategies developed, including plans attached memo. An updated comprehensive strategic plan would prioritize improvements and location, along with identifying possible funding source and targeted implementation years. Okay, and that was the memo from Guy. And I think we go into a map here.
Yeah.
That gives a bit of an overview on that. Yeah. And I know this has been part of our discussion here at ETAC for several years, on and off, I would say. And, we've been looking at this and the fact that we've highlighted the importance of this. And I think the city's most definitely come around to or improved, the whole visibility of this and importance of it. I can see that. So is there anything, Director DeAndrea, that you'd like to speak to this? Is this more in Guy's arena?
Yeah, so Lorraine, if you could go back up one page to the previous, that map right there. That first map after the memo. You can see there in the memo when Guy was talking about Tufts that runs east-west, you can see both Clayton Elementary and Sherilyn, those 2 schools right there. That's that corridor that we're focusing on. We just repaved that area. And so we're gonna put up some improvements where those 2 red dots are and where the green dot is. The green dot indicates a signal right there. And so we're just gonna focus on that corridor. And we've, so with the repaving, we repainted all the crosswalks along there. We upgraded the pedestrian ramps to make that a more walkable area for students.
Yeah, very good. Has there been any, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that crossing of Broadway right there, it's just identified as a key crossing. You know, are they going to be doing bump outs to shorten it up or something like that? Or do you know what they're going to do there?
That's what we'd apply through for Safe Routes to School, likely to do that. That one, so we did that up at Broadway and Mansfield a couple of years ago where we built those, that was a Safe Routes to School project. And so we'd probably do something similar down here. We're also potentially looking at this, if you've been following at all our stormwater discussion for the city, there's a lot of improvements that we're going to be doing in this area along Broadway. So we may incorporate those bump outs as we reconstruct this section of Broadway as well. That'd be in the next in 2021. So if we don't do it with that project, we with the stormwater project, we'd apply for a Safe Routes to School grant, but we'll most likely incorporate it into the stormwater project and then focus our Safe Routes to School projects in other areas of town.
I know that bump out at Radcliffe was pretty well received when that went in. So, you know, I think people would be happy to see something like that. I know part of the impetus for this being on the agenda was because I had some conversations with some people on Nextdoor about this. And one of the aspects that they were also curious about, in addition to the Safe Route to School things, was the connections along Rotolo Park and how there are several streets there, but there's not really crosswalks between the sections of the park to kind of connect them. Do you know if anything, I know that, you know, this is pretty focused on the Safe Routes to School stuff. Do you know if maybe we could have Guy look at that or the team look at that a little bit for the next shot, or did they look at that at all as well?
So typically when something falls in the parks like that, that's an actual park, we forwarded that on to the Parks Department to take into consideration for some of those trail connections. So we do work with them, but that probably wouldn't be a Safe Routes to School project. It'd more be like an extension of their trail system. Okay. But we have passed that on to the park staff. Okay, good. I'd reach out to them too if there's someone you can connect me with. Maybe I can connect that person I was talking to. It sounded like there were lots of kids sort of walking through that park to school was part of why they brought that up. But yeah, maybe that's an opportunity for some creative crosswalks to go into. I think this is looking really good though, and appreciate, you know, having the map and the materials and the memo stuff. This looks really good.
So Director DeAndrea, is regardless of not going after any grants and the like there, as Guy mentioned in his memo, the city's still able to move forward with a majority of these proposed improvements. Is that the idea? Over time, yeah. Over time. We just, you know, we had put together those 2 safer main streets. If you recall, we reviewed those last month along Dartmouth over in the west end of town, and then that Sherman bike lanes. We had put those 2 applications together. So we just didn't have the capacity to submit something for the Safe Routes to School grant application this time. But yeah, our intent is to do all of these improvements over time and pick them off as we go and incorporate other projects, like I was mentioning about the stormwater stuff, where we can make those all fit together. Yeah. I will say that I have seen a number of those in-street yield ped signs increasing throughout the city. So I think that's very good. Yeah. Notably on Dartmouth there at the new crosswalk that was installed there not too long ago. So, and then other places as well too. So I think that's good. It really just reinforces the pet friendly aspect. And certainly in a crosswalk, it's kind of trains people that yes, you need to yield for pedestrians at those boards. So we actually had one citizen complain to us. She didn't like it. She thought it was an eyesore. So she lived on one of the corners. Okay. So you can't please everybody. It just no. No. If it's one out of a corner, then I think the
Mm-hmm.
majority still would be there on that. So yeah. But as far as I see it, increases visibility and, as I mentioned, just gets everybody in the know on that. So
And we put them up, we called it a little bit of a pilot project, not so much that they're not effective as signs, but to see how they handle through the winter season. So as we plow the streets and, you know, that base there of that sign, it's not doweled in or anything. So it's just sort of like a tacky material. So we'll see how they handle, or they stand up through the winter season, and if they just get run over too many times, or if they stand up to the ice slicer and everything else that we put on the street.
yeah, those plows can present a challenge there, but as long as they don't hit it, there's a chance that they might make it. But
Yeah.
But they're probably not super expensive to replace either if they're just tacked in, right?
Yeah, they end up being about just under $100 a piece.
Oh, well.
So they're still
Uh,
more than you'd think they'd cost, but
yeah.
Relatively easy to install though. So pretty low staff time to do that.
Okay.
all
Could
right.
we get one of those on Inca where Little Dry Creek, or not on Inca, but Flat River Drive where Little Dry Creek crosses?
Flat River Drive.
Just south of Dartmouth.
Oh yeah, where the trail crossing is. Mhm.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay.
That's a tricky spot.
Yep. Yeah, the landscaping or vegetation on both sides is pretty heavy right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else regarding this agenda item?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, Lorraine, let's move back here. Our next item is parking and bike lanes. Consulting this Inglewood City's Attorney's Office and Police Department, they believe the city can enforce no parking within the bicycle lanes. They suggested that signage would be helpful, and signage would clarify the possible contradiction with dash lines on Dartmouth Avenue. Signs should be targeted to areas of violation to prevent excessive signage. Recommendation, traffic division can place appropriate signs in areas of concerns. Great. So this is coming probably out of the shop that we had our tour on. I think it was last year sometime at the city's shop there. So great. Yeah, I think there was a few of those could be placed most definitely along Dartmouth there. So Member O'Connell, I think you had a comment regarding this last meeting.
Yeah, I think it's tricky since the city decided to preserve parking on Dartmouth, because you'd like to just have a no parking bike lane sign. But since there is parking, it makes it a little tricky.
Yeah, so our idea was to just focus on that one location where it had that extra wide trailer, instead of trying to do no parks along the entire length and see how that goes.
Right.
So I think
makes sense.
technically we can ticket them, but it'd be better with a sign, is what's the attorney's office is saying.
That makes sense.
Excuse me.
Well, is there a clear delineation between the bike lane and the parking lane, or do they overlap?
There's I believe it's a solid white line
But they're so
that
spaced.
separates the parking from where the bike area is.
Okay.
It's fairly narrow though, and the intent is that they would use the curb or gutter area as well as the asphalt. So unless you really tuck your tires against there, it can encroach pretty easily.
Well, that's a tough situation though.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking a matter of inches.
Yeah, I guess it just comes down to, I mean, once that roadway is established, you've only got so much room and you're trying to accomplish a lot, especially with the bike lanes. That probably wasn't taken into consideration when they first, acquired the right of way and did all that and designed the roadways. But here we are in 2020 and it is something to look after. Sure.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. All right, very good. I think that's a very plausible solution to just remind maybe certain people that aren't looking at that as something that's critical, and they don't think it's a big deal to encroach. But yeah, if you have a cyclist coming down the corridor there, and of course they take their eyes off of it for a second, yeah, that could be something that could be critical and impact.
Especially with a car door opening, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, very good. Thanks
So
to
we'll-
Guy for that. Oh, go ahead.
We'll get that up probably within the next few weeks here. I believe, was that down more towards the end, towards university?
The
I think
issue
you
with
sent
the
a photo,
guy,
maybe? Mhm.
I think the one that I had brought up was, I think it was about Dartmouth and Pearl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's mostly just his utility trailer is quite wide and takes up most of the bike lane.
Okay. Yeah, so they could, at Pearl, they could definitely, pull around the corner onto the north
Yeah.
side street pretty easily.
Yeah, it's a corner lot.
So it shouldn't be too much of a problem for the vehicle owner.
I would think there as well, Maria, that as a city, the employees and staff, float around the city, and if they see areas that, you have a repeat infractions or violations, I should say, of this, they can probably put themselves there too, if we don't catch it as a committee ourselves there too. But certainly if we spot something ourselves, we'll bring it to your attention.
Yep, we'll certainly be on the lookout for this now on Oxford, other areas of town.
Great. Okay, any other comments on the no parking on bike path item here?
No.
All right. Let's move on.
Lorraine, could I ask you to stop sharing and I'll share my screen in PowerPoint? Just so it's full scale. Thank you. All right, so if you recall, we had postponed this item since we went so long last time. So the intent of this is really just informational to let you guys know what we're planning as far as transportation projects within the Public Works Department for the next year. And I think, when you put it all together, it's pretty impressive. So please stop me at any time if you have questions. So first off, we've talked a little bit about this before, is our pavement management program that we've established with 5 different areas of the city. We have been working around the city. So last year, or this past summer and fall, we were focused down in area 2 in the southwest portion of town. And you can see here the way that we rotate this. So we go through, again, on a rotating basis. Next year we'll be in zone 3 for corrective. And corrective is really more of that intensive mill and overlay, where we're doing more extensive work to the roads. Preventative, where we'll be next year, will be in zone 4. That's more like your slurry seals, the kind of the top coating, the icing, if you will, on the street to kind of keep the environmental conditions of rain, snow, the de-icing materials that we use from ruining that top level of the pavement. So what we do is really try and keep good roads in good condition, and that's what the preventative maintenance is focused on. You can see that the routine precedes the preventative by 1 year. So routine, what we're doing is with our own staff, with street staff, we're going in the year before. So this fall and winter we'll be in area 4, as you can see here, doing crack sealing, kind of prepping the roads, filling all those cracks, repairing potholes, so that when we come in with that surface treatment with the preventative next spring and summer, those roads the underlying base is ready to go, and they're prepped and in good condition as best as we can get them before we put that final coat or lift on them. So we don't do every single street in any area. Instead, we just concentrate our work for whatever the year is in that particular area. So in zone 3, which we'll do next year, we'll probably be doing a fair amount north of Dartmouth. And we're just now finalizing what those roads are and what that level of effort will be and where that work will occur. So we have within our pavement management, we went from 1.7 million last year. Council increased that to 1.8. So we do have a little bit more to work with this year. So we just feel, so this is our 3rd year of that program. We implemented that, started that in 2019, 2020, and now up to 2021. So once we get through in 2023, then we'll start over again, obviously with zone 1. But this 5-year kind of concentrated effort, I think, has done a really good job to look at how we can not only be more proactive about our pavement management, but also start to move that overall condition to a better place. Oh, there, I circled that where we're going to be next year. So our routine then in the fall of 2021 will be in area 5 in preparation for 2022, as you can see there. And we do the routine maintenance in the fall and winter, because actually when it's cold out, that's when the cracks are at their widest. So we don't actually want to do that work in the summertime, because asphalt gets a little bit hot. It starts to kind of knead itself back together again. And we want those cracks as wide as possible when we're going out there to seal and fill them. Okay. Oops. We've been going through on a similar basis using those same zones. Right now, we were currently or almost done with zone 1, which if you go back up here is the northeast portion of town. So this summer we did area 2, the alleys, and then we started in on zone 1. And you can see we have 88 alleys up there. So what we've been going through is actually, you can see here, kind of grading them so that there's more of a V in the center, adding this slightly larger gravel to that center line. And then this vehicle, or a piece of equipment, what they're doing, this white stuff, they're applying a dust suppressant. It's a liquid dust suppressant to keep that from washboarding and just getting dusty and potholed again. So the contractor has been grading this, rolling it, making sure that there's a really good base there before applying this material.
Thanks for clarifying that, Maria. I had that in my back alley as well too, and I was curious what was being used. It was like mag chloride, or I don't know what was coming out there. But
it's a proprietary product called DuraBlend. So they use it a lot on gravel roads, like in more rural areas, county roads, and it holds up to heavy traffic really well. So we thought it was a good application with the trash trucks, especially.
And
so
it seems to be working very well. It seems to be working well so far. My back alley there.
Good. So we've hit. I'm just going to go back up to the map. So we did area 2. This past year we're working in area 1. We'll probably have to finish that in the spring. And then again, we'll be in zone 3 with that alley maintenance work in 2021. And again, the plan is to get through the entire city. Street staff still comes through, and if there's a particular, for whatever reason, a pothole, any kind of damage, we'll still come in and fix that. But this is meant to kind of be an intensified thing to get better drainage in the alleys. We also, all of this, for the most part, sanitary sewer runs down the alleys, not in the streets. So if somebody has a sanitary sewer service repair, they're digging up the alley to get to that. And so then that usually creates like a pothole, or they're backfilling it with not so great material. And that usually will cause some failures or a sinkhole or a pothole to occur. So we're always on the watch for those as well in relation to sanitary sewer service repairs. So we've initiated the design for the US 285 and Broadway Interchange. So just to familiarize yourself where this is the Mushroom Bank right here. Downtown is just to the north. And so the plan would be is we'd reconstruct this interchange by rebuilding these ramps, widening this bridge so that there's more lanes and wider sidewalks on Broadway, and then widening 285 so that there's 3 lanes in each direction. So right now, if you travel in either direction, it's 3 lanes, but then that 3rd lane peels off. So you basically have 3 lanes of traffic merging into 2 underneath this bridge, and then it eventually widens out again, probably further down here near the Safeway. So we would do the same thing in this direction, is create 3 lanes of 3 through lanes underneath the bridge, so we don't have that bottleneck. We'll also likely be removing the traffic signal here at Sherman. This is Safeway right here. So on this backside, it's just too close to these ramps to make it effective. And we can already are looking at those traffic crashes, and we can see that this is a real issue. So we might still have like right in, right out access on both sides. You just might not be able to like make lefts out of here, nor make a left to go to Safeway. So there'd be some access, most likely, just not full access with a signal. So we are initiating.
Have you talked to the businesses? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Have you done a survey with the businesses over there that would be affected?
We have not yet, but that will be a part of our process to reach out to them and start to talk about that and the impacts of how we would still get, you know, this is their loading zone back here. You know, how trucks might come from a different route to be able to get there. And that's why we still think that maybe right in, right out might still work. But we definitely want to talk to them first about that process.
Is there a substantial amount of right-of-way acquisition on this, or just partially, or?
Not too bad. So we do
bad?
have to
Okay.
go through the whole NEPA process. So we're anticipating that should be fairly minor. There are a couple of properties right down in here that are considered at least potentially on the historic property level, which means that I think the cutoff is older than 50 or 60 years. But we do have to go through that, and maybe there's one over here, but really there's pretty limited right of way that we think we have to acquire. So no full takes. It would just be little slivers, probably right here and probably right at this corner as well.
Oh, I didn't know that historic there. So
Yeah.
have to be going through SHPO probably,
Yeah.
huh?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah, so we'll bring back more of the designs. We hired an engineering consulting firm called Atkins to help us with this. We think we have a really good team to work on not only the environmental, but the overall design. And when we were going through the interview process, I talked about how this intersection is just really charming in the sense that it's tiny, it's small, there's lots of green area, and we want to preserve that as much as possible and not just make this big thing that's really out of context with the downtown area and the surrounding residential.
Maria, I was wondering, given the bike path that kind of ends right there where there's, you know, it looks like almost could be a park right where your clicker
Right here?
is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is there any pre-planning involved so that in the future, maybe if we wanted to use that as a entryway to a bike path or make that more usable space? Because right now it's, like you said, it's a really unique, kind of quaint, beautiful little intersection. And I personally would like to see that little area where the bike path ends into that parking lot be utilized better. You know?
Oh, up here, yeah.
Yeah, up there, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So we did put a little bit of money in here. You know, there's a fountain right up here that I guess is no longer working.
Yeah.
The area here is all concrete. That used to be a nice drainage area. And I think that's one of the elements of that the downtown group is looking at, is to redevelop this and just not necessarily change it, but just make it more of a place than what it is now.
Exactly.
And so this, ending in a parking lot, it's just like, it feels like it could be so much more.
But I think this whole planning with the roadways could also, you know, at least communicate with that planning group to kind of incorporate those ideas to, you know.
Yeah, and that's exactly the intent, is we've had put some design money in here because it's a little bit hard to see under this yellow line, but you can see this on-ramp butts up quite close to that trail.
Yeah.
And so if we have to push that out at all, we'll be impacting that trail. And so then what does that do to the park, et cetera?
Uh-huh.
And so we will be working with them. And then the Parks and Rec group, it actually is leading a project to then look at doing some improvements to this area specifically within the next 2 years.
Okay.
But we want those to mesh with whatever we do on the roadway project.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
Mhm.
Hey, Director DeAndre, do you mind if I step in there?
Sure.
But we did approve the funding for the first phase of that, didn't we? As part
Yes.
of the 2021 budget?
For the Little Dry Creek Pond area.
Exactly. Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure.
And that's being led by that's the piece being led by Parks and Rec.
Exactly.
Yep.
But basically everything that Patrick was speaking to, that's part of the 2021 budget.
Correct.
Right,
Yep.
unfortunately,
So
yeah.
doing something up at this end, yeah, just making this just a nicer place to be, I guess. Okay.
Because it
So
does
the
have
plan-
character, you know,
Mhm.
it's worth salvaging or saving.
Yeah.
Utilizing.
So the schedule for the interchange is to design in 2021 and then begin construction early in 2022. So probably February, March of 2022, we would be under construction, and then it'd probably take about a year to a year and a half to complete. So there will be impacts in terms of traffic during that time. And as we get closer, that's part of the communication process, is how do we keep access to businesses going? How do we keep vehicles traveling through this area even while we're under construction?
Yeah, I imagine the phasing on this will be somewhat extensive.
Very, yeah.
Yeah.
So another big project, so that last one as well, we got about $8.5 million of federal transportation money for that, that includes $800,000 from CDOT. So our contribution by the city is just over $1 million for a roughly $10.5 million project.
Score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is another project that we received federal funding for. So we're going to build a pedestrian bridge just off the right of your screen. Maybe another half a block is the rec center, just for reference. And then here's Oxford leading out to Santa Fe. This is the railroad bridges as well as the LRT line runs up here above Oxford. So we're going to be building a pedestrian bridge across here to connect to the light rail station that's just on the north side of Oxford. And then this becomes part of that north-south rail trail system that has been envisioned for the city in our comprehensive plan all along, that basically runs along the east side of the light rail tracks all the way from Littleton all the way through the north end of Inglewood. So we're really building the first piece of it here to start to make that connection. So you can see here that, yeah, here's the future Inglewood rail trail down here. So this allows people to come up and over the roadway without having to cross at grade.
I think this is another project that's been on ETAC's wish list for some time.
Good.
So, excellent.
So we're we're actually awarding the contract for design at the December 7th meeting, city council meeting. And then so design would kick off probably right after the first of the year. And our goal would be to start construction probably early 2022 as well.
Wow. Well, Maria, has there been any further discussion about where the climbing gym and everything was? Is that going to be incorporated with the new the new river trail?
That's the intent. You mean up near
Okay.
Hampton, the south side of
Yeah,
Hampton?
sorry, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this trail, this would be the green is the bridge, then you'd come across and then we'd wind that back up here, and eventually we'd also have another pedestrian bridge at Hampton crossing from the south side to where Chuck E. Cheese is,
Yeah.
right there. So that's on our next project funding list through Dr. Cog, hopefully. would be to focus on that bridge and then create the trail between the two bridges.
Cool. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're still pursuing this, hopefully going out for bid. Sorry about the dog here. He's whining. Why are you whining? So this bridge here where we've got the little pin, we're widening out this bridge in order, and if you travel this way at all, you know that there's 2 lanes as you come off of Santa Fe, and then you have to merge into the right-hand lane if you want to go through, because this eventually becomes what we call a trap lane or a left lane only. And then you take a left here at South Platte River Drive. Oh, here's that crossing that we were talking about. We'll put the sign right there.
Yay.
Yeah.
And then this continues and you can take a left then here at the, I guess it's the West South Platte River Road. So we're widening out this bridge, and then we've also been able to get some additional highway safety improvement funds through CDOT to upgrade these 2 signals here and here, if you can see my arrow, and then slightly widen out this roadway here too, so that we don't have that situation basically. So we'll have 2 through continuous lanes plus a left turn lane, plus sidewalks over the bridge here on Dartmouth, plus upgraded traffic signals. So we've expanded the scope of the project a bit because we were able to get that additional highway safety money. And we had already bid this out once. It came in fairly significantly over budget. And so we think repackaging this, adding some additional funding will be able to be in the ballpark to get this done. So the plans are nearly complete with these revisions. And so our plan is to go out for bids probably in February this year and start construction probably late summer of 2021.
Great. Yeah, that's a very noticeable pinch point there.
It is, yep.
That's,
And I was
yeah,
going to say the traffic is
heavy
going to be
westbound.
difficult. You know, as we build this bridge, it's not going to be easy way to travel through there. All right, any other questions on that one? So we'll continue just like we have in the past, is doing our concrete repairs and pedestrian ramp modifications. This was a project, I believe this was on Tufts this past year. We replaced, I believe, 84 pedestrian ramps, and we'll continue to do that. That's in accordance with Americans with the Disabilities Act. We want to make sure that we're making good progress in keeping up and maintaining our pedestrian ramps throughout the city so that they are accessible for wheelchairs and other people with disabilities. So the amounts here you can see we spend just over about 1.3 million to do concrete work throughout the city. This also repairs any kind of trip hazards on the sidewalks, as well as some curb and gutter work or concrete cross pans that have either gotten damaged, broken up, or are just need replacement. Again, we'll be doing various traffic signal equipment upgrades and repairs. So Chris Groth has talked about this in the past. He's kind of is able to manage and do different things like replacing the traffic signal controller cabinets, some of the cameras up here, and different elements of the traffic signal system. So we're not doing any full out change out or upgrades of any of the traffic signals because that wasn't funded, but we will continue to work on various upgrades to different parts of the systems throughout the city. We are going to be completing our inventory of the traffic signals later this year, and that will help us to prioritize what those improvements are. Another project we received some federal funding for was this US 285 congestion mitigation study. So this actually runs all the way from the kind of turquoise color here is the city of Englewood. So you can see the limits of the study though go all the way from Sheridan in the west, where Knox Boulevard and Lowell Boulevard and Knox Court is the traffic signal on 285. Then you have Federal, which is a grade separated interchange. And then you have another signal at River Point leading into the development in Sheridan. So there's those two signals on the west side. Then you get to Santa Fe and Hampton right here. And then we're extending it all the way to I-25. So it's about a 6-mile stretch of roadway. Englewood did decide to take this on. We initially thought about just going to University, but then at the request of Cherry Hills Village, we're taking it all the way to I-25. So Cherry Hills Village and Sheridan are participating in the funding of this, as well as a significant amount of federal funding. So between the three agencies, we're paying $40,000 each. And then the remaining about 1.4 million is coming from federal funds. And you can see here what the brown dots and the red dots are. This is the amount of crashes that have occurred in that corridor. And I think what's interesting about it is that it's not all concentrated in just a couple locations, but it's really spread out along the entire corridor. You can see here we had a death at this location in Englewood. And I think that just speaks to the importance of doing this and looking at it from a corridor-wide perspective. So the intent would be is through this study, what we'd look for is different types of improvements. Maybe it's like a right turn lane or an added lane somewhere here. I know Colorado Boulevard always becomes a pinch point if you drive this area at all. There's a lane that drops off as well in that area if you're traveling eastbound. And so little improvements like that, not all out widening, just adding a lane, but instead focusing on what small improvements can we make, maybe with signal timing, different things to make just travel be safer through here, as well as then we're looking at all of the pedestrian and bicycle elements to see where there's gaps, where improvements can be made, and just provide that as an alternate to just traveling within your car. So that's that whole stretch that we'll be looking at.
And aren't they opening up the bike lane on crossing Colorado on Hamden?
I haven't heard anything about that.
Oh, I thought they were revamping that whole thing, that stretch.
I
They
think
are, Patrick. It's going to go underneath from what I understand.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
I believe it's part of connecting with the Highline Canal, correct?
exactly. Okay.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I think that's been a long time in coming also. And right by the golf course there, right, Patrick? Wellshire Golf Course. Yep.
Yep.
I did see that. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think it's going to be crossing 285, but then also Colorado as well too. An underpass, I think, that goes both ways. Yeah.
And I used to take that route every morning to work, and yeah, people would fly up on the right hand lane just to kind of cut in, and you can tell that it was. I personally feel that they could have made that more of a easier entryway as a lane rather than a cutoff lane immediately once you pass Colorado. But on the other hand, you know, it's illegal to be doing that anyway. So I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. So we'll look at all of that. We'll certainly come back to ETAC to get your input once we are more down the path of being able to take feedback, and some of those comments, Patrick, will certainly can bring those up so that we can incorporate them into the study.
And will you let us know what the trends are from the study?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think the interesting thing that we're seeing, Arapahoe County has been, Neil, you guys may be doing this too, but Arapahoe County has been kind of monitoring all of the major corridors within the county and looking at trends as a result of COVID. So of course, right away, we saw a significant drop off in traffic, especially during peak periods. And now that's creeping back up again, almost to like pre-COVID levels.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah. It's quite noticeable, but yeah, the different agencies are monitoring that. I know that, and certainly doing it down Douglas County as well too. But yeah, that it's something how that kind of bottomed out, but it's definitely coming back up to, like you're saying, pre-COVID levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are also, we had sent out a survey. This is one of the grant projects that Guy was successful in acquiring or getting for the city. We're looking at on East Dartmouth here, doing some traffic calming by removing the traffic signal and replacing it with one of these mini roundabouts. So this is a schematic. It is an actual intersection. You can see the underlying aerial there. And you can see how this narrows it down in each with bump outs in each direction to funnel that traffic in a slower way through the intersection. We did put out a survey to the community. We've gotten about 200 and some responses, which I think is great. And I really think that people are most interested in, can we still have emergency access? How does this work in relation to a signal? And so a lot of it is just maybe more education than people being outright, you know, opposed to something like this and doing something different. Some of the feedback we've gotten is also like people run the lights because they're just, you know, they're old, they're not timed very well. And so people ignore them and they'll make right turns or they'll go through them almost like a stop sign instead of adhering to them, especially in the early and morning hours. So we think this is a more beneficial element that still provides safety without the need for a traffic signal at those locations. And you can see here then that the bike lanes would come up to this, then basically, so they'd be marked on the streets east and west of here. But as you approach as a vehicle or as a bicyclist, you have your own lane and then you would have to take the lane as a vehicle in order to traverse through. Then as you come back out, you have the lane again.
Yeah, I don't know, because Logan is kind of the top of the hill. So if you're headed eastbound, taking the lane as a cyclist might be, I don't know. I am not super sold on this one.
The other option that you typically do is that you can run the bike lane up onto the sidewalk and make this more of a trail. Then they have to either, it's wide enough to use this, come around, use the crosswalk, and then come back like that. Are people going to do that versus, you know, just taking the lane? But we'll refine that design and again get input on that process.
So Director DeAndre, so I have the similar concerns as Tiffany here in terms of just how to use the bike lanes. I've been getting a lot of concerns from cyclists, but this kind of reminds me of in Golden where, you know, if you go up to Lookout Mountain, that stretch around, what is like Highway 6th and 19th or whatever that street is, but they have something similar. And I was actually thinking that what the expectation is not to go into the road itself, but actually to get off onto that sidewalk, kind of like where you're showing there and picking it back up past the roundabout. So that's what it looks like to me. It looks like a very similar design to what they have in Golden. And if that's the case, maybe we could get some dialogue from Public Works in Golden and see how that's helped in that area. I think the traffic is obviously a little bit different, but in terms of, you know, how much traffic we actually get within Logan and Dartmouth, at least for I consider that a very busy intersection, but I'm just kind of curious what they've seen since they implemented, 2 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, those are really brand new with a lot of, I think there's a lot of students and just other folks who are on the west side of Highway 6 up there coming across through that interchange and then across to like Mines and downtown Golden.
Similar traffic or mile per hour congestion, right?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, it's probably similar miles per hour congestion. So I think that's a really good idea.
Okay. Yeah, so this is our first shot. The intent is again to seek input from the community, refine the design, and then implement probably late next year or again in 2022.
You know, I would say that when it comes to bike lanes and approaches, whether it's at roundabouts or even just through intersections, it's interesting to see different municipalities and their different approaches sometimes. I wish sometimes it would be a little bit more consistent, but then one size doesn't fit all, right? But occasionally you'll see that's where that bike lane will be detached and then through the intersection, and then they'll channel the bike lane towards the curb as you get beyond the intersection and doing that too. Not in this application here in this roundabout, but as an example, I've seen that. So it's just something that it's design wise, it's something that gets a lot of vetting and different opinions on these, I noticed.
Yeah, and I think we were trying here in the schematic too to avoid any kind of right-of-way impacts on these corners. So by getting a little bit of right-of-way maybe from these corners opens up a lot more options in terms of how we can fit this in.
Yeah, I would personally say though that this is different than Golden in the fact that we're on it's a pretty much of a downhill, right? So it's, you know, it's a little more dangerous as far as no red light, like buyer beware.
Okay. All right. So I think that was it. So this just summarizes here. Now we won't expend all of this money in 2021, but this is the extent of the projects equals just under $22 million of improvements that we'll be doing. So mostly design in 2021, some construction, and then significant amount of work in 2022. And I think that's it. So any further questions or additional follow-up you want from staff?
I guess I have a just question for the group here. Would you say that these projects that Maria outlined here, is this in alignment with some of the priorities that ETAC has? And part of our previous meetings, part of our discussions and so on, I think a lot of this does speak to our priorities, but I'm just curious about everyone else's opinion on that.
Yeah, I think this incorporates quite a few things. You know, there's been a lot of topics, you know, the alley maintenance stuff and the road maintenance, just having, I think there's, the city's even in general more transparent about that. Not even transparent, but like more vocal with the public about what they're doing. And I think people are receiving it a little bit better. I see some things on Nextdoor, the website, that maybe we didn't a few years ago. So it's nice, you know, some of the things that you guys have on the list here are things that have been traditional topics that we've had in the committee, and they've been, you know, oftentimes part of a budget or a schedule, sometimes not. But I think in general, these are pretty well aligned, and I really appreciate the work you guys are doing to, you know, listen to what we have to say over here as well. You know, we appreciate that. So for the most part, yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
I agree. I really do appreciate the communication and the constant give and take that and the dialogue we have. So yeah, this looks great.
Yeah, personally for myself, I would say, and it's not just coming down to the dollar numbers here, but you know, that 285 Broadway Interchange reconstruction, that's quite a substantial project there. Very much needed, I would say. And also the 285 congestion mitigation study as well too, you know, based off of, as you pointed out, Marie, all those different intersections or locations where there had been accidents throughout the corridor there. That's quite a bit. And so I'm glad that there's a study underway to try to improve that, as well as everything else that you've identified here.
And again, this is just an overview. So our intent is to bring back, as we have more details, to present that to you, more specifics on the projects, and seek your input as we go along with the design process.
Great. Well, thanks for that presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Lorraine, are we to the end? Do we have another agenda item? I think that was it. So we're on to next item, which is Director's Choice. It's back to you, Director DeAndrea.
All right, well, thank you. First, I'd like to introduce, she introduced herself at the beginning, but Janet Lundquist is our Deputy Director of Operations and Maintenance within Public Works. And so maybe if we could take just a minute to have her introduce herself and give a little bit of her background.
Hi, I'm Janet Lundquist, and I'm really excited to work with you guys on the ETAC. Transportation is one of my passions. I actually started out as a traffic engineer, worked on the Western Slope, and then moved up north to Will County, where I served as a traffic engineer for about 10 years, and then have been working as a consultant the last 3 or so years, working on specifically CDOT projects and coordinating different traffic incident management projects with Colorado State Patrol. So not only am I interested in my primary role here at the City of Inglewood, looking at maintenance and operations, you guys have a place in my heart too, just because you are caring about providing multimodal needs to the community. So I just wanted to say hello, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, thanks.
Great.
Welcome.
And we're excited to have her here.
Yes.
And then if you guys hadn't heard, so the model traffic code got passed by council with the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit reduction, as well as the safety stop. So congratulations to
there you
ETAC.
go. Yeah.
Yep, that was your hard work in support of that. So I think we had a good discussion. I'll let Mayor Pro Tem speak to it if he wants, but I think there was a good, solid discussion on the safety stop and the merits and of that. And so we're actually meeting tomorrow with the communications department to talk about how we start to communicate that out to the public, both the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, as well as the Idaho stop or safety stop, and how that's going to be available to people in the future here. And then finally, just wanted to mention that unfortunately Guy Norris has given his resignation. So he's not going to be with the city anymore. So we'll be seeking a new traffic engineer most likely. And in the meantime, though, you're in good hands with myself and Janet. So we'll be moving forward with various initiatives, and hopefully you shouldn't see a blip in our support. And that's
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Director DeAndrea, for that. I like to always round the horn here for the other city staff here. So Deputy Director Lundquist, if you have anything else to offer, I appreciate your introduction there to the committee, to the group there. But if you have anything else at this time.
I don't have anything this evening. Thank you for the opportunity, though.
All right, very good. And we have Sergeant McKay, if he's still on the line.
I am. I don't have anything, but I want to welcome Janet and thank you all for your time and efforts. We're making some significant progress through ETAC. So thank you all.
Yeah. Okay, and Mayor Pro Tem, Sierra, if you're there.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. And Deputy Director Lundquist, good to meet you and look forward to working with you as well. I guess just to add to Director DeAndrea, actually Director DeAndrea, I'm not sure if I should be part of that meeting on tomorrow, but one of the things that I have spoken to Bicycle Colorado about is just identifying ways that well, I guess I should start. I did ask Bicycle Colorado if they would be interested in helping fund some type of communication with the city. They did state that they're not that type of organization, but that they will put us in touch if we so please, with other bike advocacy groups that could help us with communication, whether that's additional signage. Obviously within the communication, I think just some videos or something along those lines would work. So I did reach out to Director Hargett on that as well. So he's aware, but I haven't spoken to him about it, but just wanted to provide you that insight in case that comes up during the meeting tomorrow. And yeah, I guess just to follow up there, as Director DeAndrea stated regarding the traffic model code, there was some good dialogue on it. Probably went for about a half hour. when did we first discuss that? Like October 20th or so? Somewhere around there. That meeting, October 19th, was the first reading. At that time, it passed 6-1, and then the second reading was the first Monday of this month, and that went 7-0. But there was some good dialogue within that initial meeting. No further dialogue on the second reading for some reason, but it's just it is what it is in terms of what we stated. But no, I do want to thank you all for the dialogue that you provided as well. I know that it wasn't, although it did go unanimous in terms of a 3-0 vote, I know that there were some reservations from some of the committee members, and I just wanted to let you know that we were aware that we discussed that during the meeting, during that first reading. But I want to thank you for all your work on this as well. I know you guys worked on this for a couple of years. So, but yeah, thank you very much for bringing visibility to it, and just proud of the work that you guys did. So nothing else for me, Neil.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Very good. Moving on to the chairperson's choice. So I have a few things here. First, I did notice the newly installed island, I believe, small little island there at Broadway and Floyd, and the improvements that are going on there. So I think that's something else that's been on ETAC's wish list, or as a matter of discussion for at least a year or two now. So again, commending the city on moving forward with that. I think that's a great improvement. Some of those PED signals have been installed. I don't think they're still covered right now, but the changes are there, and it looks like they're in place and almost completed. So that's something that I think we've been looking forward to some time. So thanks for that. And at the last meeting, there was a citizen who spoke there. His name was Tom Sanders. Mr. Sanders wasn't included as a part of a response at today's meeting, and I'm just curious, and perhaps Guy didn't have the opportunity to do that response, but maybe we can get to that at the next ETAC meeting, or I can follow up with you, Maria, and send you that the email that Mr. Sanders had sent to me. I think it was back in October sometime.
Yeah, I think you had forwarded that to us, Neil. We just
Right.
weren't able to get the traffic counts in time to make a recommendation for this meeting. So again, in this next month, I can put that together as well as reach out to Mr. Sanders.
Yeah, no problem. I just I wanted to acknowledge that there. So, and then as a last item of business, I did get a kind of a notification from one of the committee members, but actually kind of a question in terms of some of the members, or a particular member hasn't been present at the last several meetings. And I think the city's going through interviews right now for additional members on all sorts of boards and committees there. So I reached out to Member Plasters, sent an email to her just asking if she's still interested in being part of the committee. Certainly I suggested we'd still like to have her a part of the committee, but if her schedule doesn't allow and so on, then just please let us know. I have not heard back anything from her, and I think she's missed several of the last few meetings. So I wanted to bring that around to the committee, but also to the city in terms of the next step. I don't know if that's something that the city would like to reach out to Member Plasters themselves and try to make some connection or something there, but I just don't know what to do at this point. And if there's a window for interviewing new ETAC members, I think she's an alternate. I don't want to lose that window as well either. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I'll follow up with the city clerk. I believe in the bylaws, there's a certain number of meetings you can miss. So we'll look at that
Right.
In relation to the attendance records. And it may be that I'll see what the process is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maria, what we can do at this point, if Chair Sarno and the members agree that they want to remove her from the committee, they can send a letter to the city asking them to do that based on the attendance, and that will leave that position open.
Okay. Well, I would just say to that, Lorraine, I mean, offhand, from my memory, I think it's been several meetings in a row, I would say. I don't have a full count right now or a number, and to have that against whatever the bylaws are in terms of the number of meetings there that our bylaws indicate, I just would want to make sure that, we're within that realm there before going there in terms of recommending removal from the committee.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, Neil, because I think our bylaws only dictate 4 meetings a year, and we've just been doing monthly meetings. And so
Right.
Whether that is of the 4 required meetings or just 4 generally held meetings, that's an interesting, that might, I'm interested to see what the city has to say about that.
Right, exactly. So, and I think there's actually even different language when it comes to the boards and committees. I think it was attendance is 75%, but if you miss any more than 60%, I think it's somewhere about there. I can't recall off the top of my head, but I think that was some of the language in there. So again, it's just something that, I still want to welcome Member Plasters if she's still interested in that. But during all of these previous meetings, and I sent out the request for agenda items, I haven't heard anything from her, hasn't attended some of the last several ones for sure. And again, if we're in that situation of interviews right now or whatever, having a replacement, then that might be the correct course. But we can defer to the city clerk, like you're saying, Maria, and then
Yeah, let's look into it. We'll get the exact counts and bring that back to you at the next meeting.
Sounds great. All right. Okay, great. Let's move on to committee members' choice. Let's start off. Member O'Connell.
I just wanted to thank everybody for their time this evening. And I think I already mentioned my pet peeve trail intersection at Platte River Drive and Little Dry Creek. So that was probably the only thing on my agenda for the evening.
Okay, very good. Noted. Thanks. All right. Member Diedrich.
No additional comments to add this evening. Thank you to Maria and the team for putting together a nice update for us this evening. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Member Lewis.
I'm gonna reiterate what Member Diedrich said about, I love that update, and I've also missed the last week or two, but I was thinking that Member O'Connell's cat could probably substitute for our new, if we need a second member, she's very observant.
Can he or she pull off an interview? I think so, probably.
No, I really appreciate Maria. That was awesome, and you did a really, really stand-up job, and I'm happy to be part of this team. So it's a little different being via Zoom. I would like to see you guys again, all of you, shortly. So, but yeah,
I think we're all hoping for that, Patrick.
I know. Together. I would like to do
sooner than later.
Area
Right.
1 verse 3 verse 4 5. I think zone 3 is the best because I live here. Yes.
All right. Real good. Well, I think I've got everybody. If I've missed anyone, please speak up now.
Oh, Greg.
Greg's on.
Neil.
I'm sorry. I thought I did.
That's okay. I came late and I apologize for being late today. I had some work stuff that bubbled over. But I guess I'll just make a plug for it. I'm working on the Colorado Exposure Notifications app. So if you haven't turned that on yet, please do.
Cool.
We are working to make it more efficient for getting the codes out. So anyways, that was the thing that the fire that I was working on. And I apologize for being late. It was such great news. Thank you for that update, Councilmember Sierra, about the about the bike, like the SB 18144, the bicycle safety stop. That's very exciting to me after talking about it for so long. So yeah, congratulations everybody for all of our work on that. And just thanks everybody for all your continued work. I don't have any issues to raise to discuss other than my appreciation for you all.
Right. Well, thanks, Greg. Appreciate you. Even jumping in even at the end. That's quite fine with those comments. So, all right. With that, we'll have adjournment here. So thanks everyone for coming, and we'll have our next meeting. Oh, I don't have a calendar here in front of me, but it'll be the pre-Christmas Jubilee. Let's see here. And I think that would be the 10th, December 10th. So until we meet again, thanks everyone.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
All right. Good night. Take care.
Everyone.